Hello there, lovely folks at YouTube. Ren here. So I do want to apologize for the appearance of this plant behind me. Usually I try to get them when they're really at their peak. I was requested to do this video when they were at their peak and they were stunning. By the time I got all my notes put together and life shit out of the way, these were a little bit past their prime, but they're still delightful. I still want to talk about this plant right here. This is my Gardenia, Gardenia Jasminoides. This is a very, very popular shrub in the southern United States. Unfortunately, if you're not in the southern United States, you probably will not be able to grow this. It is native to Asia. It's a subtropical evergreen. It only grows in zones 7 to 11. And even in zone 7, it can be kind of iffy. There are some cultivars that only grow in zones 8 and above. This particular cultivar that I have here is the frost-proof cultivar, which can grow in zone 7. So just keep that in mind. If you are anything north of zone 7, you will have to grow gardenias indoors, which is a chore, let me tell you. This is a very finicky plant, I will be honest. I kind of lucked out in that the place that I planted these plants, it actually seems to like it, but even then, it was several years of trial and error before I finally hit on the right combination that they like. They do not tolerate anything below 15 degrees, so I do give winter cover to these every year. I wrap them in burlap. That's one of the things that I hit on that they really need, because if it drops below 15 degrees, it will die down to the ground, and if it drops below 0, it will just die, period. So if you have temps that do that, yeah, you'll have to grow it indoors. These plants really like an acid soil, which is another thing that we have here in abundance in the southern United States, but other places you might need to add an acidifier. The ideal pH of the soil for these plants is about 5 to 6, which is pretty acid. Fairly comparable to things like your azaleas, your rhododendrons, and blueberries. So, this plant also, although some places will say that it can do full sun in the cooler areas, I don't give mine full sun. I have mine in the shade. They get morning sun and they get some afternoon sun, but in the midday they are shaded by my 2 trees, the redbud and the crepe myrtle here, and they do not get midday sun, and they really seem to prefer that. So I would recommend just giving them, you know, that morning and afternoon light, but making sure they have good shade cover in the midday, because I have heard that they will drop leaves and drop flowers if they get too much sun. Again, it's a very finicky plant. The number one thing, this plant needs humidity, and a ton of it, which again, we have an abundance here in the south where the air is soup 6 months out of the year. But other places, if you don't have humidity, or if you're trying to grow this indoors in particular, you need to have a humidifier. You need to have that sit on a dish of rocks and keep filling the water up in order to raise the ambient humidity around it. Or ideally have it in some kind of enclosed, like a, I'm drawing a blank on what they're called right now. Like a Florida room or something like that, where you can have it separate from the house and be able to increase the humidity in that room to something that they would like if you want to grow it indoors. But again, this is a real picky plant, y'all. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, it needs things exactly right. And even then, like, I didn't have things exactly right for a long time, and it died down to the ground for me every year for several years running. I never got any flowers on it until just a couple of years ago, when I started, like, using like an ironite fertilizer on it and an acidifying fertilizer, azalea tone, I think it's called. Anyway, yeah, they're kind of needy. They're really kind of needy plants. So yeah. Now the payoff, if you do get it right, is these absolutely gorgeous flowers. I'm gonna pick this one here. Oh my gosh, this flower, is stunning. These are incredibly fragrant. In fact, I've actually heard recommendations that you not plant them directly under a window that you're going to have open, because it gets a little overpowering. I have mine about 15 to 20 feet away from the window, and I was still smelling them through the open window, like a lot. So delightfully fragrant flowers. Delightful, delightful. And here's the other fun little thing. They're edible. They don't taste like a whole lot, but they are safe to eat. So I have heard of people actually taking the unopened flower buds, like these right here, and pickling them, but I don't know why you would want to do that, because then you would never have these flowers. These flowers are amazing. So I actually made a salad, which those of you who follow me on Instagram would have seen, and I did include the flowers of this plant in the salad for our Litha celebration that we had this weekend. So yeah, definitely edible, safe to eat, not bad, you know, honestly. But like I said, they don't really taste a whole lot. Has a texture kind of similar to like a firm marshmallow, but yeah, it's a cool little plant and it's safe. Like, how cool is that? So anyway, let's talk about some of the magical properties of this plant. So this is another one that, again, because it's not native to Europe and it really just started being grown fairly recently, at least as far as you know, our magical practice it goes. There's not a lot of information on this. There's really only two people who have written anything at all on this that I can find. One is Scott Cunningham, of course, and the other is Paul Barrel. And I know I'm mispronouncing his name again. God damn it, I can't remember how to pronounce his name properly. But Scott Cunningham puts this plant under the dominion of the moon, which, I mean, you know, white flowers, sure. Barrel actually puts this under Venus. I tend to side more with the putting this under Venus, because the fragrance of the flowers is very Venus to me. There's also the fact that this flower was used in the language of flowers from Victorian era. It was used to denote secret love. So yeah, I can see this as more of a Venusian plant. It doesn't really have a lot of the lunar qualities that I associate with other lunar plants, things like mugwort and you know, those sorts of plants that have, you know, they're a little bit more like camphorous, sort of mind-altering in ways that this plant really isn't. So I would put this more with Venus than with Moon personally, but you know, to each their own. Again, this isn't really hard and fast. We don't have a lot of historical information to base this on. And even with Cunningham, like, he doesn't give any sources for anything, so I don't know what he's basing his information on at all. Now, Cunningham also lists bringing peace and aiding in healing as properties of this plant. It is possible, again, difficult to determine because he gives no sources, but it is possible that he did base that on this plant's uses in traditional Chinese medicine. So the fruit of the gardenia plant was actually used and is still used in traditional Chinese medicine for a cooling plant. So it's considered to be very cooling, like a cooling tonic, particularly useful for driving out the heat that causes irritability. So I can see where, you know, the connotations of this plant being associated with peace could be tied in with that use. And then of course healing is just because it was used in Chinese medicine, but like Chinese medicine is its own system that I don't have a lot of familiarity with, and I don't really want to muck around with, because you really need a lot of training and experience to be able to understand that system. And I don't want to dabble in something and pretend that I'm an expert in something that I am not. I don't have any cultural reference for it. I don't have any personal experience in it. So I can only forward the information that I find readily on the internet about it. I can't purport to be an expert in the system, and therefore I'm always hesitant to kind of make like oh well, in this system it says this, and therefore like that kind of judgment call on it. So, but what I can say just from my personal experience of this plant is the fragrance definitely does have a very sort of calming, peaceful vibe to it, to really just you know, it's good for just, you know, I find that personally it really is good for sort of like bringing the stress levels down and just sort of enjoying the moment when you're smelling the gardenia. So I can definitely see it being used for that. Healing, again, I don't really see a lot that really supports that, but if it works for you, then go for it. So, but yes, I can definitely see it being used as sort of like, you know, calming and bringing peace to a situation. I can also see it being used for love magic. And if we combine the two, I can see this as being used for sort of bringing peace and understanding to a tumultuous time in a relationship. So if you're having difficulties in your relationship, this plant might be useful for that, to kind of, you know, bring things back to what's important and reconnect and, you know, find that mutual understanding that your relationship is built on. So that's what I would use this plant for. Anyway, it's not for everyone, unfortunately. I never even saw a gardenia until I moved to Virginia. So, and even then they're pretty few and far between, because again, it doesn't really like zone 7 that much unless you get particular cultivars, but yeah, if you can grow it, it's a pretty nice plant. But god damn, is this plant finicky. It's a very finicky plant. So yeah, good luck. That's all I gotta say to you. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope this video finds you well, and I will see you again soon.